Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the weekly Ringer series here on clanofthegreywolf.com. Now, shooting today with the handy-dandy webcam, back in the more familiar setting here, but I just wanted to, sometimes it is difficult to find new settings with the Clan of the Grey Wolf flip video camera, but that's okay. I'm hoping to transition to a certain point in time, probably here in the near future, where I can shoot with the flip camera, because I know that you guys like the quality better, so on and so forth. Hopefully I'll be making that a more permanent part of what we do here. But for now, it is very easy for me to be able to come in and sit down and record with the webcam. So you guys will have to forgive me for the quality, but it does make things a little bit easier on me, at least right now. So, got a lot going on today. We need to do as we always do, which is kind of go over the question from last week and answer it. I asked you guys about your philosophy on ringtones, and a lot of interesting contributions, and an addendum to that was really interesting in some things that I saw this week. Sometimes it's really cool that the things that I start to talk about just jump into the news for one reason or another, or it could be vice versa, that I see something in the news and I ask you guys about it. But in any case, I try to keep the Weekly Ringer nice and pertinent about the things that are going on in the world around us, especially in the tech and geek and games / films, whatever arenas. You guys know the deal and the drill by this point, and if you don't, I'm sorry. My voice is a little deeper. It's a little bit beat up, but that's okay. I am fine. Don't worry. My voice just gets beat up because I am a performer, and when I do have shows and things like that, my voice definitely goes away. So I'm in recovery mode right now, folks. That's a little insight into what's going on with the Commodore today. All right, so once we get done with working on the question from last week, and I'll give you my own philosophy for what it's worth, as I always do, and then I want to jump into a question for next week that I think I really want you guys to put your fortune teller hats on about mobile gaming for next week. All right, now, so as you recall, for the question last week, I asked you what your philosophy was on ringtones. And the reason why I asked that question is very simple. Just purely as a qualitative observance from myself. I saw that there was a time when everybody had ringtones that were either recorded by them or created by them for pop music or some kind of video game music, whatever the case might be. Just some kind of music that was recorded that would distinctively identify them as, okay, I've got this ringtone. And that was really going strong for a very long time. But what I notice now is that most people that buy these brand new phones that are capable of tremendous amounts of multimedia in terms of an experience, almost all of them either use stock, the stock included ringtones, which sometimes are musical, sometimes are not, or just the kind of plain Jane, very simple kinds of, what do they call them? The old-fashioned ones, the ones that just sound like old telephones, right? And I wanted to ask you guys about that, just because I thought, it seems kind of ironic to me that now that we have these phones that really are capable of producing some really tremendous sound, that we've really moved away from that, and now it's going to be about simplicity and almost like recreating that telephone experience, of having the old, and those of us that are old enough to understand what this is about, we remember hearing an old telephone and thinking, oh, okay, the phone's ringing, I need to get out there. It doesn't matter what else is going on, you're going to hear the phone ring. I don't know. I mean, you guys have a lot of theories here. I want to get into those before I really jump into my opinion. I'll say first and foremost, before I get into the nitty-gritty here, that most of you either like the idea of customization, with a caveat, and I'll get into that in a second. So being able to create your own songs, either from recorded music. Almost everyone, I think, said recorded music, so I won't even go further than that. Or taking just kind of the vibrate or always on vibrate, right, approach, which is you're really not interested in having a ringer. It's kind of about being able to just identify visually when you have a call, or if you keep the phone in your pocket or something like that, you know when the phones are going off. Although I will say this, nowadays it's interesting. Most phone vibrate functions are actually so loud now that you almost don't even need a ringtone, right? And so it's actually kind of interesting because I was where was I? I know where I was in church last week, and someone's phone was going off. It didn't have any ringtone to it, which is great. That's nice. It's not a whole interruption for everyone, but it's just sitting there vibrating so loudly that it sounds just overwhelmingly loud inside of this very, very large building, right? And I just thought that was interesting that even though it's on silent and vibrate, that basically you can hear it from a mile away. And I know that that's definitely changed as well. That was not the way things were when the vibrate function was first thrown into mobile phones. Just a little interesting aside. But so that means that all of you are in for, or not all of you, most of you like the idea of customization in one way or another. But overwhelmingly, you all said that you're fine with it as long as it's not the kind of loud and obnoxious music that can really interrupt the day, can really destroy a public setting, just like I talked about. If it's done in a kind of tasteful way, then you're all for it. Now, I mean, a few of you mentioned the idea. I mean, I know Stolia mentioned this idea. The idea of if you put a song that is done tastefully, oftentimes it's difficult to hear it. And I actually have that same problem myself, and have had that problem with my phones throughout the years. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. But the point is, I think all of you are okay with the customization of the songs. It as a matter of it being kind of just subdued, and rather than just kind of full on. And I know a lot of people, and some of you mentioned this, just kind of used to take their phone and throw it up against a big blaring speaker and just say, hey, here's a recording of my favorite song for 30 seconds or whatnot. And that was never great quality, and I was always really amazed at how many people did that. It'd be interesting to see in terms of communities and demographics who still uses those kinds of ringtones and who does not. But in any case, let's get back into the contributions. That was kind of the meta analysis, if you will, before we get into the specific. So DTX 180 talked about vibrate being the solution of choice, which I think many of you, like I say, echoed those sentiments. But I think he highlights another piece of the puzzle that should be brought out here, and that is that ringtones were really, really huge for a while, for a moment there, because they were a way for both the cell phone companies, either manufacturers or the providers, service providers, or in many cases these kind of shady third party, so on and so forth, fill in the blank, companies to make more money, right? So, and there wasn't a great idea, I think, that outside of the official channels you were getting anything that was any more legal than if you illegally downloaded the song yourself, chopped it into pieces, and put it on your phone. But people did it, right? I mean, people would go, and I mean, I still see ads on TV to this day. You're watching a video or something like that, a music video. They'll say text, blah, 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 and you can use this as your ringtone. And I just think that's an interesting idea, because they charge probably $1 or $2 just to have that ringtone for a while, and as we all know, I think ringtones probably do get old pretty quickly. But in any case, I think that definitely does affect one's philosophy. If it's just another way to kind of generate revenue for the companies that provide cell phone coverage or that provide the cell phones themselves, then I think that probably did have something to do with the decline in popularity of those services now. However, and this is why it's interesting, I think it was only on Wednesday of this week, I actually opened up a news piece and saw that the downloading of ringtones still accounts for a tremendous amount of downloaded music on the web. In fact, it's a very, very large percentage, and I don't have those numbers in front of me. But I think it's somewhere along the lines of still generating somewhere in the neighborhood of a $2 billion business a year. that provide ringtones to phones, even after paying for licensing, so on and so forth. So it's still a fairly lucrative business, although that article basically says flat out that the peak for downloaded ringtones in terms of an industry was 2005, which I think seems a little early. So that could mean that here on the Weekly Ringer, I am just exceedingly slow at detecting trends. But what I would like to think is that maybe it's more that the folks that I hang out with and the people that I see, kind of, I guess, less slowly degraded with them as an experience. But in any case, it's pertinent, right? People are talking about it. It's still a very large business, and it's still a very large part and chunk of the music that gets downloaded online. And that's a very interesting idea and concept. So let's see. Oftentimes it's cool to see, I ask this question and then all of a sudden an article pops up. That's pretty cool. Estolia votes for the song, which is great, but I think brings forward the point that I made before, and this one was trumpeted by many of you. You just have to make it to a point where it's something that is recognizable, that's something that you don't mind a lot of people hearing, and something that even if they do hear it, it's not going to blow their eardrums, and it's not going to destroy kind of a quiet office or a library or something like that. If your phone goes off, would people say, okay, that's tasteful, or would people say that is really freaking annoying? And so I think, and Estolia talked about the idea of chopping kind of more tasteful pieces of a song to make it loop perfectly and to make it so on and so forth. Just enact the constraints that make it work to where it actually could be a viable option. I agree 100% with that, and I think that's a very good insight. I think if it's done well, people can really do a lot with the customization of ringtones. All right, let's see. Drastic, who votes for customized ringtones as well, recommended setting them for a friend as a prank, which I think is a great idea. Why not just go ahead and go out and do that? It definitely makes sense in my book. In other words, you can create a ringtone with an MP3, so on and so forth. Most phones are very easy to plug in USB-wise, and then just enable them as drives. Throw an MP3 on there, and find a way to get it set as a ringtone. I think that's a great idea. I think more of us should be doing pranking through MP3 ringtones. I think that would be a fantastic thing, and we should all get on that. So nice insight, Drastic. At the very least, if they're not something, setting something like, I think somebody mentioned Justin Bieber going off in the class. Setting something like that would just be hilarious, and I think that's just a fantastic idea. Let's prank people with MP3 ringtones. Sonic Rose talked about the idea of bringing video game music for each and every person. In other words, kind of, and several people, I know Chris Pranger mentioned this too, Pranger8 actually mentioned this, the idea that it should be reflective of people's personalities. So if someone calls you, you want to have them kind of identify through a particular ringtone. And that's something that is not a new phenomenon, but now that we have all the storage capabilities we have in these phones, and all the customization that is available, it seems like it could be a viable option now to be able to, when someone calls you, you could actually have a unique ringtone for them that's actually really nice and tasteful, and you'll know exactly who's calling, so on and so forth. And, of course, I cannot argue with the fact, and several of you brought this up. I know Mr. K talked about using some Metal Gear Solid sound effects, so on and so forth. Using video game or otherwise geeky stuff is always cool in my book. I, for a very, very long time, had ringtones that came directly from Chrono Cross, just because the music from that game is so incredible, and I just thought it was, if I'm going to point to a specific, genre of video game music that I think does it well, I would posit that as one of the best examples. And so I never minded that going off. People that didn't get it thought, wow, that's a really great song. And people that did get it were always like, high five, right? Or whatever. So it's if you can make them distinctive with video game music or otherwise geeky things, that is all the better, in my opinion. And then there was Chain Dog 2003, which had a vote for customized ringtones as well. But